Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the sheer mechanics of Elon Musk's Martian vision. We're looking at the architecture of Starship and, honestly, the terrifying physics of actually surviving the drop to the surface. It's not just about getting to the red planet, right? It's about making absolutely sure our first explorers, and maybe even Musk himself, don't just become shooting stars the second they arrive. Musk's vision of a multi-planetary future is really rooted in optimism. It's this idea that tomorrow has to be better than today. He talks about how becoming a spacefaring civilization is just fundamentally exciting. And it is. It's a sweeping, beautiful dream of humanity expanding its footprint, where we can look up at the night sky and know, hey, we're out there among the stars.
But let's get real for a second. As beautiful as that dream is, the actual mechanics of getting there, they are brutally unforgiving. Hitting the Martian atmosphere at a blistering 7.5 kilometers per second brings up a very practical, very immediate question. How do we make sure our first human crews, the heavy cargo, and potentially Elon Musk himself, don't just instantly incinerate upon arrival?
Let's look at the destination profile, because it's definitely a mixed bag. On average, Mars is about 140 million miles away. But the day length, 24 hours and 40 minutes, is basically Earth's twin, so our biological clocks wouldn't totally freak out. And with gravity sitting at just 38% of Earth's, you could bound around in a spacesuit and lift incredibly heavy things with ease. The massive catch, though, you'd be holding your breath. The atmosphere is this thin, unforgiving layer of carbon dioxide. Harsh, yes, but as we'll see, it actually holds the exact raw ingredients we need. Now, SpaceX isn't just planning to send a handful of elite astronauts to plant a flag and leave. To build a truly self-sustaining city, we are talking about 1 million people. Literally 1 million, plus millions of tons of cargo to support them. This isn't a quick scouting trip. This is gearing up to be the largest proposed logistics operation in human history, an endless pipeline of resources flowing between two planets. To pull that off, picture this: the sky above Boca Chica, Texas, lighting up with 10 launches every single day. So you can't just launch to Mars whenever you feel like it. Earth and Mars only align perfectly once every 26 months. That creates this massive high-pressure orbital bottleneck. So during those brief transfer windows, SpaceX plans this staggering cadence. We're talking fleets of thousands of starships transferring crew and cargo. They're targeting the very first uncrewed cargo flights for no earlier than 2028. And if those survive the journey, the first humans follow to prep the landing pads, set up the power, and build the initial habitats. So how does this actually work? SpaceX proposes a totally clean sheet rocket design, and it relies on a very specific 4-step architecture. They plan to use the exact same Starship vehicle for descent, surface ops, and coming back. Step 1 is the launch from Earth. Step 2 is absolutely critical, a cislunar rendezvous to completely refuel in the vacuum of space. It needs that gas to make the trip. Step 3 is the direct journey across the void. And finally, Step 4, aerodynamic deceleration. And Step 4, well, that's where the physics get truly terrifying. This is the 7.5 kilometers per second problem. When Starship finally arrives at Mars after months in the pitch black, it's not gently slipping into orbit. It is slamming directly into the Martian atmosphere at hypersonic speeds. The friction generated by that brutal entry creates an absolute inferno of plasma right around the spacecraft. This right here is the crux of the engineering nightmare. Mars has just enough atmosphere to incinerate your ship through friction, but nowhere near enough to actually slow you down with regular parachutes. Historically, just dropping a 5,000-kilogram robotic rover has pushed our engineering to the absolute limit. Now compare that to a human payload. You've got life support, return infrastructure, and a crew we very much want to keep alive. That whole setup weighs in at roughly 40,000 kilograms. Safely dropping that much mass through the Martian atmosphere, it's a completely unprecedented challenge. To survive this brutal drop, agencies are having to get incredibly creative. Take the lofted 6-meter demonstration, for example. That stands for Low Earth Orbit Flight Test of an Inflatable Decelerator. Because rigid heat shields can only be as wide as the rocket itself, engineers are testing these massive deployable structures that actually inflate in space. It creates a much wider drag profile, designed specifically to slam into that thin Martian air and handle those massive 40,000-kilogram human payloads without burning up. For Starship, SpaceX is relentlessly testing its own proprietary, reusable thermal protection systems. Entering that atmosphere exposes the vehicle to extreme thermal conditions and highly reactive atomic oxygen. And here's the kicker: the heat shield can't just work once. It has to survive multiple atmospheric entries without failing, without heavy refurbishment, and it absolutely must protect the crew, again, potentially Musk himself, from a very fiery demise. Okay, let's say you conquer the physics, you survive the drop, the plasma clears, and you step foot on Mars. Now what? Well, staying alive and getting your ticket home relies entirely on ISRU, In Situ Resource Utilization. Starship is designed specifically to run on liquid methane and oxygen. Why? Because those are natural resources that you can chemically synthesize right there from the Martian's CO2 atmosphere and subsurface water ice. You literally have to mine and manufacture your own rocket fuel on another planet just to get back home. Talk about a stressful return ticket, right? And just staying alive on the surface demands some incredibly robust tech. We're talking highly reliable, closed-loop habitability systems that recycle literally every single drop of water and every breath of air. Plus, the surface is bathed in radiation, since Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field like Earth does, so you need heavy shielding just to sleep safely. You'd also need specialized agriculture, compressing the local CO2 to grow plants under engineered lighting. Because a city of 1 million people definitely cannot survive waiting for grocery deliveries from Earth. So we know the physics, we know the insane logistics, and we know the required surface tech, which brings us to a really fascinating question. As the hardware actually starts coming together, who is positioned to deliver these critical systems first? The global landscape is rapidly shifting into what is essentially the next space race. We're seeing 3 very distinct philosophies emerge here. First, you have China's space agency, the CNSA. Their program is largely defense-funded, which allows for massive, concentrated capital and what industry insiders call China speed, basically the ability to rapidly execute major goals without bureaucratic drag. Then you have NASA. They rely on a distributed government funding model designed to support jobs across multiple states, and they're focusing heavily on lunar staging through Artemis. And finally, there's SpaceX. Driven by commercial funding, utilizing clean sheet rapid development, and totally unburdened by the mandate to use any legacy hardware. NASA's approach is highly methodical and very cautious. They're using the moon as a mandatory stepping stone. By building the Lunar Gateway and the Artemis Base Camp at the moon's south pole, NASA wants to rehearse these long mission durations. They want to test surface mobility and really validate those closed-loop life support systems in cislunar space before ever risking a crew on that terrifying drop to the Martian surface. But what's truly revolutionized this modern space race is the commercial shift. SpaceX isn't waiting for NASA to lead the charge to Mars. Backed by revenue from Falcon 9, Starlink, and aggressive venture capital, SpaceX plans to fund, build, and outright own the massive Starship fleet themselves. In this new paradigm, NASA isn't the driver, they're the passenger buying a ticket. Government agencies will likely just be customers purchasing seats for their astronauts, pretty much exactly like they do right now for the ISS with Crew Dragon. So, we have this soaring vision of a multi-planetary future. The colossal logistics are being mapped out, and the heat shields are quite literally being blasted with plasma in test chambers as we speak. The mechanics of establishing a city on Mars are terrifyingly precise. It leaves us with one incredibly consequential question. As the technology catches up to the dream, who will ultimately conquer the physics, tame that 7.5 kilometer per second atmospheric fire, and be the very first to walk safely on the red planet?